Mr. Ambassador, let's talk about overall political situation of our country.
Sure.
Our country, Burma or Myanmar, hasn't taken off enough yet since the new government took office in March last year. I would say that the country is still facing the political turbulence, and the country is still young, the storm is strong. So what is your brief summary of the assessment on our country?
Well, let me start by saying that we look at this as Americans representing the American government as a friend of the people of Myanmar. And so what we're focused on is what, if anything, can we do to support the people and the institutions that are trying to make progress here. So in assessing the situation, I think what I would say is, there was 50 years, as you know very well, 50 years of military rule. And there's a lot of big issues that have to be addressed. The relationship between the civilians and the military, the constitution, the peace process, communal conflict, economic development. So I think, honestly, it was always going to take time to address these things, and it was never going to be easy. So we're very aware of the challenges. The challenges are real, and the last few months have really highlighted those challenges. But when we step back, I think we can also see that this was going to take time, and there's a need for a lot of persistence, and there's a need for all the institutions, all the players in Myanmar to step back and think, how can they contribute, how can they work with each other to achieve this longer-term goal?
As you know, at the end of January, very prominent lawyer, U Kony, who is a legal advisor to the National League for Democracy, was killed at the Yangon International Airport. Were you shocked? And what is your conscious or unconscious response to that bad news when you heard it?
Yes, I was shocked when I heard the news. I had the good fortune of knowing U Kony, and was shocked by the news of his murder. And of course, it's a terrible loss for his family, but it's a terrible loss for the country because of his great contribution to so much of what people wanted to see here. My reaction, thinking about it a little bit later, is I'm struck by how everybody is calling for justice, understandably. People want justice, as they should. But this is sort of, in some ways, what you're hearing in other parts of the country. One of the key changes and challenges for Myanmar is building what the State Councilor always talks about, rule of law. And part of rule of law is justice, which means, in this case, completing a very credible and transparent investigation that, not to satisfy me or foreigners, but to make the people of the country feel that justice has been done.
Many people believe that this is a political assassination because, as you know, U Kony was a very strong advocate to amend the constitution, even to write a new constitution. 2008 constitution was drafted by the military, and so people think that this is a political assassination. And then, according to the president's office, those who plotted and the killing included the former military officers. How do you analyze his case?
Well, it's certainly not appropriate for me to speculate on either who did this or what the motivations were, for two reasons. One, I'm a foreign government official, and I should not in any way interfere with an ongoing law enforcement investigation. Second is, I don't have access to all the information. I don't know what all the facts are. So again, what I would say is it's important that this investigation be completed, be very thorough and credible to satisfy the people of Myanmar. I don't know who was behind it or what the motivations were, and I certainly wouldn't want to speculate.
As local people, especially those who are outspoken, critical about the constitution or the current political situation, are really scared after they have seen and they know that this killing. Are you also frightened?
Well, I've had a lot of people tell me that they're frightened by this killing. It's a natural reaction. Someone who is involved in moving the country forward is gunned down, and the motivation is still, certainly to me, not clear. So it's a natural reaction. I think again, this is why it's so important for justice to be done. Fortunately, in Myanmar, in your past, you haven't had a lot of this kind of murder. You don't have a lot of gun violence. It's certainly not in Yangon. But I think it's a natural reaction, and I think it calls for justice.
Let's talk about the peace process, which is the most important issue in our country. That's why Aung San Suu Kyi and her government also has focused on the achieving the peace since they took the office. You visited the Kachin state recently, and
yes.
You met Chief Minister of the Kachin state, and you also met a commander of the Northern Command, Brigadier General Nyi Swe, and you met other people as well. So, what is the main obstacle for our country to achieve the peace?
Well, that's a good question. I guess what I would say is short term, because the whole peace process, as I think everybody knows, is going to take a long time. There's the immediate goal of ending the actual fighting on the ground, which is hugely important, and then the longer goal of having a political dialogue that results in a federal system that people can all feel comfortable with. So I would say the main obstacle to both is a lack of trust, based on too many years of conflict and people on different sides not having faith that the other side is committed to peace or will fulfill their commitments. So in that sense, I think first we've urged all parties right now to end the fighting. There's a lot of suffering going on, and this ongoing fighting, intense fighting in Kachin and northern Shan State is really a threat to peace long term. Shouldn't be in the interest of anyone or any institutions in this country. But then second, it's going to take a long time, a lot of dialogue, people on different sides all reaching out, taking a little bit of risk to reach out and try to build up that trust. I think people know that. It's easy to say, it's harder to do. But what we're doing as a friend and a country that cares a lot about supporting peace here, we're urging everybody involved, take that extra step to talk, stop the fighting, participate in the process. Again, we're very careful not to tell different groups you should sign the NCA or not, but everybody should be trying to take an extra step toward peace, particularly right now.
I want to know the U.S. role and in the peace process, the international community, especially the United States, which role they can play and to immediately to help halt the ongoing war, to be able to bid at the peace.
Yeah. First, I would say we fully respect that this is the Myanmar peace process, and so we're always very careful not to interfere. But not interfering doesn't mean we can't play a helpful role. And I think, I'll just speak for my government, but I think many governments are trying to do similar things. There's sort of two ways in which I think we can help, in which we're trying to help. One, as a friend, our interest is only in peace. So we don't have a separate agenda other than promoting peace, and I think most people recognize that. So as a friend, we talk to the different groups. We talk to the military, the civilian authorities, we talk to the ethnic armed groups, civil society participants, and urge them to keep working toward peace. Sometimes people get very frustrated, and we're trying to say, please, you have to think of the long-term interest. What about this? Sometimes we offer suggestions about ways to build trust, those sorts of things. So I think that's one role we play. The other role we play is quite different. It's more on the technical side, because I think there's broad agreement that peace over time is going to require lengthy dialogue on a federal union. We're doing some seminars and programs to help people understand better what federalism means, what some of the issues are that will need to be addressed. Again, not to say you should follow this system or that, but here's some of the things that would be helpful to understand as you go into that dialogue. So we're doing that as well.
There is also another international key player in the peace process, which is China. Mm-hmm. China is our big neighboring country, and which has a lot of influence on the Burma's the governments in the past as well. So when you approach this peace process, is there any conflicting policies or ideas between especially two countries, United States and China?
Well, I can't speak for the Chinese government. What I can say from our government, we don't view the peace process as in any way a U.S.-China issue. As I said, our hope, we'll be very happy if there's peace. That's our sole focus when it comes to the peace process. I have had many discussions with my colleague, the Chinese ambassador. We've talked very openly about that and have agreed on the importance of working for peace. Again, I don't want to speak for him or his government, but we have quite regular conversations in support of the peace process.
There is still a restriction in terms of providing the humanitarian aid to the refugees, especially in the Kachin state. Do you know who is blocking it?
I don't know for sure, but it's a big concern. There are tens of thousands of internally displaced people, and there are significant restrictions on humanitarian access to them, which is very concerning. There really needs to be greater access to these people, both in government-controlled areas and in KIA-controlled areas. So we have raised this, I have raised this with the military, the civilian authorities, and others multiple times. It's a big concern because a lot of civilians are suffering. So we strongly urge everybody involved to find a way to allow assistance to reach these people.
Let's talk about another land of crisis or conflict, which is Rakhine. And the government has been facing a lot of pressure on that issue, yes, especially from the international community. And you visited Rakhine as well. You met the officials over there, and then the other people as well over there. And then I know that you have your own team over there. And what is your finding of that, the conflict?
Yeah, well, I've been there, I think, 3 times, including just 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was just in Sittwe. We're not doing any kind of investigation to come up with an independent finding. That's not our role. What I would say is, clearly there were attacks on October 9th and afterwards, which we have condemned. And the security operation result has resulted in a lot of human rights allegations that the UN has just issued a very strong report about. We're not in the position to confirm this specific case or that specific case happens, but it's clearly very concerning to have this widespread human rights and very severe human rights allegations, and I think it should be concerning for everybody. So it highlights the importance of a serious, credible investigation that gets to the bottom of this. But it also highlights the need to address the underlying problem, which is, we all know how complicated, how incredibly sensitive it is, and only the Myanmar people and government can figure this out. But there is a way forward with respect for human rights, following rule of law, and promoting dialogue and gradually building trust between these communities. That won't happen quickly. And addressing the legal status of the Muslim population. And again, I think this can be done according to Myanmar law, and that's the fair way to do it.
There are always 2 different stories when it comes to the Rakhine conflict. As you said, the UN issued a very strong report saying that there were mass gang rape or indiscriminate killings on the ground after the security forces launch an operation on the ground. The military or the government keeps denying there was no such crime over there. So what do you know about the situation? Also, the international community or the mainstream media in the world reports are close to the reality, or they've gone too far, or whether the government is lying?
Well, what I would say is without access to the region, without really sustained access, it's hard to know what all the facts are. I think where we would come down is the recent UN report was based on intensive interviews with people who had fled. It's cause for very serious concern. We're not in a position to verify or rebut specific cases or allegations, but the number of allegations, the interviews, and the reports are very concerning. And what it means, again, I think most importantly, is the need for these to be investigated thoroughly and for there to be as much factual information provided as possible. And I would note that the government most recently had responded to the UN report. I don't remember the exact words, but said that they took these allegations very seriously, which is, frankly, I think a good response. It's something to be taken seriously, but only a really thorough investigation can determine all the facts.
Late last year, the International Crisis Group has released a report which is called a New Muslim Insurgency in Rakhine State, because some of the people from the Rohingya group who have a connection with this kind of the terrorist groups outside the country and get involved in the violence. And so whether there is a concern and the United States in that issue is kind of the new Muslim insurgency as they name it.
Yeah, what I would say is, as I said, our interest here is that Myanmar be peaceful and successful democracy. Obviously, if there's violence going on, whether it's an insurgency or something else, that's a cause for concern for the Myanmar people and for the United States. What I would say is, obviously, some people were involved in these attacks on October 9th. We don't have more information than what your government has or what we've seen, but obviously some people were involved in the attacks. We've condemned those. It's important that people involved in those attacks be apprehended so that they cannot continue to carry out attacks. But at the same time, I think when you have concern about a possible nascent insurgency, it's important to address whatever underlying issues might lead other people possibly to be sympathetic to that. And I think this gets back to addressing the root issues, the underlying issues, so that there isn't, you don't see any growing support among the population, which is very peaceful, has been a very peaceful population. You don't want to see any change in that.
Aung San Suu Kyi has been under fire, and because of these two issues, especially the ongoing wars in the ethnic areas, and also the conflict in the Arakan state. Do you really think she is taking the right path to be silent or quiet on those issues?
I think that she and her government are facing incredibly difficult, challenging issues. And you know how complicated they are. What I would say is, I think she's demonstrated and her government have demonstrated a very strong commitment to achieving peace and implementing rule of law. But there's a lot of obstacles to that, a lot of obstacles. So, people are always with one of the great things about freedom of press is people can question and even criticize and say, why are you doing that? I think that's actually healthy. Doesn't necessarily mean I always agree with the criticism, but I think it's healthy to have that debate. But I would not want to be, questioning her tactical decisions. I think the key is her clear commitment, her government's clear commitment to peace, to imposing rule of law, but facing a lot of challenges in turning that commitment into reality on the ground.
Let's talk about another issue, which is also very, very important in our country, the military. When it comes to the military had controlled the country 100% since 1962 until 2011. So we cannot forget the role of the military, not only in the security arena, but also in the political arena.
Right.
I think that is the main reason Aung San Suu Kyi and her government has been focused on the national reconciliation, especially to get the national reconciliation with the military leadership. So, do you think the military is fully collaborating with the current government and with the ruling party to achieve the country's goal and the peace and the Federal Union?
I would say that you've identified obviously a core issue, the importance of the civilian authorities and the military being able to work together to address peace and national reconciliation, all of these sorts of things. I think it's still very much a work in progress. I'm not privy to detailed information on their communications and how closely they're working together. But I think the people of this country clearly have voted for a move to democracy. And I think it's still a work in progress. Full democracy still isn't here. The military is going to play an important role going forward. We've encouraged the military to continue to support reform, including whatever constitutional change the people of this country decide they want, leading presumably to civilian control over the military, and to focus on supporting the peace process. And we've made it very clear to the military that in our view, this is a really essential role for the military going forward.
You're a very seasoned diplomat in the region, including Indonesia. Indonesia was quite similar to Burma as well when it comes to the role of the military. And now in our country, the military has been playing a very important role in the politics. Right. So do you have any comparison between the two militaries or two military leadership?
It's always dangerous to compare countries. There are certainly some surface similarities, but very different histories, very different circumstances. So I wouldn't want to take the comparison too far. What I would say is that Indonesia is a very good example of a country that successfully made the transition to a democracy in which the military is out of politics, but is a very respected institution by the people of the country and a respected institution internationally. And that transition allowed us, for example, to greatly increase our relationship with the Indonesian military. Again, no two countries are the same, but I think it's an example of a successful transition that can lead to a full democracy in which the military is an important and respected institution out of politics.
Now you have a new administration in your country. Your president is Donald Trump. I think he might be least popular among the former US presidents. And the international community is quite probably upset with his diplomacy and the policy. Have you seen any change in terms of his diplomacy to Burma as well?
No, I haven't seen any change in terms of the U.S. policy toward this country. I can't say that there won't be some adjustments. I mean, normally in an administration you would have some changes. But I would say this is not a partisan issue in the United States. There's a long history of both Republicans and Democrats supporting the democratic transition here, wanting to be a good friend to the Myanmar people. Every indication I'm getting from Washington is that that will continue. So I expect that we'll continue to play the same role we've been playing, trying to be a good friend. Again, some of the details might change, but the core principle of trying to be a good friend, supportive of Myanmar, I'm very confident will continue.
Economic sanction on Burma was lifted.
Yes.
And also the United States has encouraged the U.S. businesses to come into the country to do business here, but we haven't seen a lot of U.S. businesses coming into the country. Is there any problems in doing the business here for the U.S. businesses?
Yeah, I'd say two things. One, as you said, we have lifted sanctions. We're encouraging U.S. businesses to come take a look. Some are coming in, some are investing. I think U.S. companies will tend to be a little bit cautious coming into new markets, so that's not unusual. I think people are waiting for, now that there's an investment law, they're waiting for the bylaws to come out, the company law. They're waiting for a little bit more clarity on the policies. I think that would be a key issue. There other issues is there going to be enough electricity? These sorts of things I think are quite important.
The last question. You have been here for almost a year, and I'm sure that you feel excited and frustrated and disappointed and probably encouraged and discouraged as well. Now, at the moment, what do you feel?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I've served I think in 7 different countries in the world. And in each of those countries, I have at times felt encouraged, at times discouraged, at times frustrated. I think that's how life is. And in every country, including my own, there's both a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges. I think the people here right now are understandably focused on the immense challenges this country faces, and so are we. And it's a time to really redouble the efforts to try to help the people who are trying to achieve progress. But I'm also still excited about the opportunities because people want peace. It's not easy to get there, but people really want peace. There's a huge opportunity there. There's tremendous opportunities economically, and I feel a lot of energy and I feel a lot of people really working very hard. So the challenges are there, no question about it, and they can be discouraging from time to time. But overall, I'm quite optimistic because I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of people working very hard in this country to make progress.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for your answers.
Thank you.